Good morning, men and ladies. It's the Meathead here with you for another video. We're heading out for an early morning ride. It's about 7:15 in the morning on a Saturday. The wife is working overtime. It feels like it's a good time to go and get lost, right? This will be my second true ride with the new Dipstick air cleaner and stuff. So far I really do like it over the previous K&N air filter and whatnot. Definitely less dirty on the bike than the old air cleaner. I think what we're going to talk about today, though, I'm going to give you guys an actual overall review of my Road Glide and what I think of it, having ridden it when it was basically a stock motorcycle with just mufflers, stock handlebars, had a windshield and LED turn signals in front and the back. Now it's, you know, we still got the LED turn signals front and back, but now we got the Vance and Hines pipes, the Dipstick air cleaner, shorter windshield, T-bars, you know, almost full performance bagger oriented. So let's get to it. Let's get going out on the road. I got quite a ways to go before I get where I want to be. I'm gonna have to get some gas. Always good to let your motorcycle warm up at least a little bit before you get going. As it sits right now, I've really liked where this bike has gone. I mean, if you guys I never started uploading videos when I had this bike bare bones, where it was basically, you know, it was still the Sport Flair windshield, but it was the 14-inch. I had the stock handlebars, which, if you know what the Road Glide stock handlebars are like, they're kind of like these low-angled buckhorn style bars, or whatever, however you want to call them. You know, they're I think they're comfortable for an older folk in a way. But for me, I prefer my hands in a position where they're straight, a little bit raised up. You know, I don't want them up here, but I like them right where they're at, you know, just a little bit of raise, a little bit straight, but my angle is slightly downward, if you guys can see that in what I'm illustrating. You know, I like that angle, I like that feel. Oh, it is a nice cool morning compared to the 90-something degrees it's supposed to be this afternoon. As far as the Road Glide goes as a platform, I mean, it's got its flaws, especially from the factory, but the thing that I will say about almost all Harleys is you can look at the flaws of each of the platforms, and you can break it down to being like, well, what can I fix on it or swap out on it to make it better? You know, like Dyna's, its neck bearings, and upgrading the suspension to get rid of that dyno wobble at high speeds. For this one, I feel like there are still some things that I haven't addressed yet. Obviously, I think rear suspension and front suspension are definitely a next in the future, because this front end dives pretty hard when you are actually in hard braking. I also want to, when the new season comes around, the new riding season comes around, I'm definitely going to have to change out the brake reservoir fluids, and I think I'm going to swap to different brake pads, whether I need to or not, you know, just to start out fresh for the year. I think 2 years of riding is probably a good time to swap out stuff like that. You know, I know that the reservoirs, the oil, the DOT braking fluid is supposed to be swapped out every 2 years, or it's supposed to be checked for moisture, and I'm pretty sure these are probably well overdue on it, but hey, I still stop. I'm still not dead, so I guess take the win as I can get it. But yeah, the suspension in the front and the rear needs to be upgraded. From my perspective, I don't have a lot of complaints about the suspension other than the dive in the front. I think the rear is all right, but with Brianna on the back, it's definitely a little bit more, there's not as much travel as I'd like there to be when there's 2 up on it. So I think getting a heavy duty suspension in the rear will definitely help me out a bit with the comfort in riding 2 up. Obviously the cam is its own thing, the next performance upgrade, you know. I already talked about the braking. I gotta say, another thing that really sucks about a stock Road Glide is the windshield. The stock windshields on them, they just don't do shit, you know. They don't they don't block any wind, they don't deflect it in the right direction. It's kind of a useless thing. It looks good. I think that the actual stock Road Glide windshield looks really nice. It's just that it doesn't really do much. As far as the motors go, the 107 versus the 114 is often a very hot topic amongst Harley guys because you're gonna have 2 different perspectives. I think that the 114 shines better in situations when you're cruising 80 miles an hour or faster. You know, if I'm interstate cruising at 80 with the 114, if I roll on the throttle with the 114, it picks up easier and gets you accelerating around a semi better, just because you know, there's no replacement for displacement, you know. But the area where I feel the 107 shines is stop and goes, just that acceleration off the bottom end, because the torque is just as much there as it is on the 114s, because they don't change the stroke between the 107 and the 114, they just change the bore. So the bore is going to get you more power in the top end, but the stroke is what really kind of determines your torque. And since they have the same stroke, they nearly have the same amount of torque. So the fact that there's now less rotational mass in the motor because of less cylinder and less displacement, you get this snappiness down in the 2000 to 3000 RPM range that's really nice. Because like right now I'm at, let's say 2350, 2400 RPMs. I can just, if I really like let my body hang loose and I just like, yeah, you can feel that snap of that torque come on. And it's even more prevalent when you're in the lower gears. You know, second and third gear is where I feel like the strongest is with the 107. And obviously with a cam, you're talking about 100 horsepower on a 107 and I think 120 foot-pounds of torque. But the M8 is also very exhaust sensitive, so as long as you put on the right exhaust, you'll probably get closer to that 110 horsepower range. And that 120 foot-pounds of torque for sure. Ooh, that's a nice Longhorn. Look at that boy. Overall, like, the maneuverability is often overlooked on touring bikes, but I guess for me, I find that the Road Glide, the Street Glide, they both the frame still handles really well, despite it being, you know, 800 pounds or more. It actually still handles relatively well. I'm not going to say I could throw it around as easy as I could my Dyna, but at the same time, like, I won't say that it's a dog. Like, I don't fight it to turn it into a corner. I don't, like, struggle to actually lean it and scrape the floorboard, you know? Is it much more cumbersome at lower speeds? Yes. It's one of those things where it's like, as soon as the weight takes over at low speeds, like if you lean it over too far, there becomes, if it was on a graph, there gets to be a point where the weight is now too much to overcome, unless you're like a pro bodybuilder or pro weightlifter and you like put it all the way over onto the crash bar and you just yank it back up like a fucking He-Man. But reality-wise, like, I don't think that they're as intimidating as people make them out to be, and I will admit that I made it out to be much more intimidating than it really was. Because when I first test rode a bagger, I test rode a 2019 Street Glide Special, and it was the 114. It was a full, you know, dresser style bagger setup. You know, it had It had the pipes out the back, it had stretch saddlebags, it had tall bars, tall like 12-inch apes on that Street Glide. You know, it was stage 1 Harley, stage 1, you know, Screaming Eagle. It was good. It was still a fun bike, but yeah, like, yeah, at first it's really intimidating because you're like, oh man, this is a much heavier bike. I don't know if I can do it. I don't blah blah blah, you know, but in the end, you get over it and you're like, it's a motorcycle. I've done this before. You start out on a motorcycle, a CBR 250 or a CBR 300 is gonna feel like a ton. You're like, oh god, this is heavy. But as you grow up and grow along the trends with motorcycles and you start riding bigger bikes, like once I started riding this, I go back to a Softail or I go back to a Dyna or a Sportster and I'm like, oh, holy shit, that's light. Even though it's not really that light, you know, they're 500, 600 pounds. Yep, gonna need to get gas. I probably should have gone up to here. Another complaint I think a lot of people have with the M8s, and this is across all platforms, is just the fact that the sound isn't typical Harley. And I can still agree with it because it's hard to come off of a twin cam where the twin cam has quite a bit of chop in the cams stock. Whereas this bike, it kind of has it doesn't have a lot of cam lope. It doesn't chop like a typical twin cam Harley, which we've had for, you know, 18 years. Twin cam's been around in various forms for 18 years, so it's hard to not get used to the fact that when you hear a Harley, it's like, this one's more like, especially stock. It's definitely a lot more airy sounding. Like, that's what the best term I can come up with it. It's kind of got like a breathy sound to it. But the thing is you put a bigger cam in it, now it chops like it's a muscle car, and you get all kinds of power. And the M8 platform, more people are jailbreaking them, we'll say. A lot of people are figuring out how to build them and make a lot of power stupid easy, you know, in comparison to twin cams. And I think that's what a lot of people, what you got to remember if you're interested in buying an M8, is that yes, the sound isn't quite there, but if you go and put like a little bit extra money in it, put on a good exhaust, buy a decent cam, a bolt-in cam, you don't have to go crazy, all of a sudden it sounds different and you're already over 100 horsepower to the rear wheel. You know how much money guys had to spend to get 100 horsepower out of a twin cam? You know, you're talking stage 3, like like taking a 103 to a 107. You're talking about having to put a lot more effort into it just to get to that 100 horsepower. And literally, from what I've gathered, you can almost get 100 horsepower out of this M8 motor with whatever exhaust you're running. Like, there's going to be certain exhausts that do better here and there, especially once you get into the 124s and 128 builds. But realistically, if you're getting 100 horsepower to the rear wheel on a M8 that is a 107 with big radius pipes and just a cam upgrade, not even a cam chest or oil pump, like, that's, you can't complain about that. You know, I'm not really, I realize right now that I'm not like overall reviewing this Road Glide specifically. Like, I'm reviewing somebody who's interested in buying a 2020 or a 2019 Road Glide that's from Harley Davidson right now that they can probably pick up. You know, this is things that I would change. And in the end, you're probably going to look similar to this bike, whether it's ape bars or T-bars, or, you know, keeping the stretched bags or getting rid of the stretched bags. You know, the Road Glide, I think, and a lot of the M8 platform, the Softails, the Street Glide, the Road Glide, the CVOs, the Ultras, the things that I would swap right away on all those bikes, even if it voids the warranty. And I know you guys are probably like, I know a lot of you guys are like strict on like the warranty, but I always keep the rule that since Harley's got a 2-year unlimited mile warranty, I would make sure that I go through the first year of riding, however many miles that is, make sure I get it properly serviced at the intervals, whether it's the first 1,000, then 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is. Get it serviced properly at those intervals. Make sure everything's good, and then fuck it. You know, first year, keep it under warranty. If anything bad happens, it's gonna happen within that first 5,000 miles. In my opinion, you're gonna notice if stuff isn't running right, you know, or you're getting excess oil, metal in your oil, you know. That's when the recall stuff and the warranty items can really take effect. But like, once you get to 2 years, you've gotten a fair couple thousand miles on it, or past that first 5,000 miles, like, I would go balls to the wall. Change it however you want it. Have your money saved up, so that way you can just boom exhaust, boom air cleaner, boom tuner, maybe a cam or something, you know, whatever it is. That's just my recipe for success. Everybody's gonna have their own opinion on it. Everybody's got opinions, like everybody's got assholes. So really, it's up to you guys what you want to do. But this is like my overall review of the M8 Road Glides. You know, I think they're a great platform to get a lot of miles on, as well as something you could really own in the long term, because if you own it for 5 years, you're gonna have a way different bike after 5 years, because it's not really extremely expensive to upgrade these things to make them super long lasting and super reliable while still making a lot of power. You just gotta take your time. In the end, I think the biggest things to replace are handlebars, maybe a seat, windshield. And that's really it. You know, I think you can grow into the suspension, or you know, you got to make up your own opinions on the suspension. But is what it is. I don't mind the stock suspension, as I said, but I think in the end, this harebrained, this all over the place review is gonna hopefully point you guys in the right direction on what you want to do with a Road Glide, and then you can research it and figure out how much you can expect to expend on it, and then maybe negotiate a deal with a dealership. So, hope you all enjoyed. I hope to see you in the next video. I'm hoping to figure out this YouTube algorithm sooner or later, because it kind of kicks my ass sometimes and kind of is demoralizing. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video, guys.